back to another episode of Road to William. We just gonna hop right into it. So this is on YouTube, The New Yorker, Liberation for Black Trans Women.
Prostitution. The girls call it a living. The pimps call it a business. The law calls it a crime. But in New Orleans, young males also preen and prance in the French Quarter, waiting for older men to make cautious advances and arrange dates. And of course, there are the transvestite prostitutes. They all share one sad task. They must score by hook or crook.
You don't put too much on because it gets hot out here. I believe that I became a leader because of my experience. My activism didn't just start from being affiliated with the nonprofit spectrum. I feel like I've been doing these things. And one thing I can take it to you, the white folks put that screw in my back, and they meant it, it was just crime against nature. But I refuse to let them bring me down. What's your rule though? The law was crime against nature. That law that basically destroys my life and many, many others. And what we're going to do, we're going to march and we're going to fight to the bitter end. A lot of women in my community didn't have the support that they needed from family, right? I utilized my own home to be able to give women in my community a place to lay their head, a place to, take a bath, a place to be able to eat. My mother was a woman who grew up in a time where a lot of things were segregated. My older siblings used to talk about my mother's issues as the things that she had to go through as a Black woman, right? She had to drop out of high school. She experienced incarceration. When me coming out to my mother and thinking about my own issues, right, as being a woman of trans experience, a Black woman of trans experience, my mother saw herself, right, seeing that, my child is going to go through these same issues as Black women. After that conversation, and that's when I began to experience the things that my sister was telling me, discrimination and being stopped by a police officer and charged. I remember walking up this street. I was on my way to Club Vibe. And so when you look down there, they have a street that's named Governor Nicholas. That's the street that I turned on, going towards the Vibe to get on Esplanade. Saw an officer. He stopped me. And so me and the officer began to engage in conversation. He was very attractive. This particular night, I was looking real nice. And, I wanted to go meet my friends. We talked for a little bit, and like about 10 minutes into the conversation, he began to talk about language that's in the crime against nature law. He began to talk about oral sex, anal sex, and all these things. He went into his wallet, tried to give me his number, but all the while, he was going for his badge. He told me that I was under arrest. I was just in disbelief, like, what am I being arrested? And so that's when I found out about the crime against nature law.
CAN stands for Crime Against Nature by Solicitation, which covers oral and anal sex for money. All they need to do is offer the sex for money, and that is a crime. The prostitution law in Louisiana also covers oral and anal sex for money, but in 1982, they attached much more severe penalties to CANs.
It was put on the books to criminalize same gender-loving individuals.
A person charged with prostitution, if it was vaginal sex, then it was treated one way. And that person basically walked out of the same door that lawyers and judges came in. And if it was crime against nature, a different sort of sex, that person had to register and oftentimes found themselves going to jail.
Our game plan calls for long sentences and an aggressive approach to prosecution.
over the years, they started to affect many of individuals within our community, specifically trans women, Black trans women who engage in survival sex work. It also affects Black women or anybody really engaged in survival sex work, but these are the demographics that they were really targeting.
You can't just carve out certain sex acts and go, wait, if you're doing missionary, that's normal. If you do another thing, it's a felony. But that was kind of the end goal when they changed the law.
If you was a woman of trans experience, you could get stopped. You could be charged with it. People knew these things, right? People knew what this law was just for. If you was in the area where LGBTQ bad, if you feel like you was that person, you was gonna get it.
How is the life of a prostitute in New Orleans? Is it pretty tough?
Very much so.
Why?
The police, the danger. When they catch you, they catch you.
There was homophobia involved in that, transphobia involved in that. There is no other way to explain the creation and application of those laws. It's hard to investigate a case. It takes days to successfully write a good armed robbery police report. That's heavy lifting. You know what's easy lifting is picking up somebody because they look different walking down the sidewalk. You can do that in 35 minutes and then be off to lunch.
I just want to thank all of you for coming out. This has been a labor of love for all of us, but also
I started my transition at 13 years old. I found who Milan was at 13. I embraced her at 15. I had to literally kick down doors and fight my way through school just to exist as a trans youth. Unfortunately, trans women engage in survival sex work because they are not afforded opportunities. Many of us don't afford the opportunity to graduate because we're pushed out of school, we're pushed out of home.
Nobody don't want to hire us. No one want to give us housing. No one don't want to give us any of these things, right? We have to live in hotels. You know, a lot of us live in hotels.
Yes, I got many interviews, but I got turned away when Milan walked through the door because people couldn't see past this. I had to do what I had to do.
I feel like without sex work, a lot of us won't be able to live.
So my first time being convicted and charged with a crime against nature, I was 16 years old. It was just a typical night in the quarters for me. You know, I was having fun, having a good time. I was approached by an undercover officer. One thing led to another. I was sworn by other officers, and I was taken to juvenile. I was the first youth to ever come through that system or through that court with a crime against nature. That's something that was equated to be a felony. And being that I was 16, they didn't know really what to do with me. For a whole year, I was put on probation. The judge, I never forget what he told me the day I left out of his court. He said, Milan, this could have went totally a different way. But I didn't want to see a young person like you throw your life away. I was one of the fortunate ones. Let me just say, I said all that to say I was fortunate because I know other women who had to register as sex offenders.
When you're labeled as a sex offender, it's like this modern day scarlet letter, right? And so you are unable to do things, right? You're unable to access employment, access healthcare, access housing, and all these different things. My life was surrounded around shame. I had to present IDs with the worst sex offender on, and I didn't want people to see me in that way, right? I was unable to get jobs, right? And then someone who I knew hired me to work into the nursing facility, right? Some workers found out that, I was required to register as a sex offender. They began to print out papers of my profile that was on the sex offender database and began to, pass these flyers out. I had suicidal thoughts. I wanted to just end my life. I remember me being stopped by an officer when he realized, who I was. I remember him hit me with the belly. The side of my face was kind of fractured. Multiple of my tooths began to fall out. After being misgendered and throw water on and laughed at and talked about, after I was released, one of the officers who misgendered me and did all these things, he me, right? And he had the power to do that. And this is why. No one wasn't gonna believe me. For number one, I was a woman of trans experience. Number two, I was a sex offender, and he was an officer. I was on the phone with one of my girlfriends, telling her like this law is like it's hindering me, right? And then she began trying to connect me with different people. So one of the people she asked me that I know Deanna Haywood.
At a press conference this morning, a group of lawyers and advocates announced a lawsuit against Bobby Jindal and others on behalf of 9 anonymous plaintiffs. Now, the goal is to have them taken off of the sex offender registry for crime against nature convictions.
I think this is a groundbreaking moment. I think if we're talking about a new New Orleans and a new city and reforming the criminal justice system and making New Orleans a better place for its residents, this is a step in the right direction.
That's when I was a part of the New Justice Project. It was anonymous. We went from there in 2012, we won.
A settlement with the state of Louisiana removed 700 such individuals from the sex offender registry.
No one had to register as a sex offender anymore. A sex offender logo on their IDs. It had to be removed within 30 days. It was able to access some type of housing. It was able to access some type of employment. Although it was a victory, it wasn't a complete victory, right? In 2018, I founded Cans Can't Stand. My goal is to get the law eradicated.
Law in the book is going to always give an officer that discretion, so the law needs to be taken off the books.
When this law be removed, right, they're always going to find ways to try to, attack this community.
Cans is still on the books, so is prostitution. And whatever you think of the exchange of sex for money, do we want to be throwing people in prison? Cans and prostitution are two of many laws that are still used to make life worse for people whose lives are already really hard.
It kind of got swept under the rug and stuff like that, but Wendy, kind of kicked that rug and was like, no, we're not sweeping this under the rug. This is the problem in the community, that we are constantly sweeping things under the rug. We're too busy tying to the respectability politics. We worrying about how other people feel and this, that, and the third, when trans women are uncomfortable pretty much 90% of the day. It's okay if you're uncomfortable 5 or 10 fucking minutes. It's okay.
The trans community in New Orleans is changing. A lot of women are more open, and they're talking out, they're fighting, And when I was coming up, it was more of like, you don't have a voice, so you can't speak.
I talk, it's because I'm carrying all of that, and I survived, so I can be here, and I can say this with you.
And I tell people all the time, like the younger generation, they more of like that adrenaline for us, right? And they're more like that adrenaline to help us not accept whatever's being thrown at you.
The oath that I took was that I'm going to fight with every breath I have in me. And even if it takes for me, and I really mean this when I say, if it meant for me to have to transition out of this reality, just to make sure that my community, my generation behind me, has it just a little bit easier and better, then I'm willing to do whatever it takes. And I know that liberation, it comes without compensation.
I didn't know Big Frida, executive producer of this. Shout out to Big Frida. We love Big Freedom. Shout out to all the trans women. Shout out to all women. Yeah, y'all tune in, learn more, dive more into their organization, dive more in. If you like this video, if you like what I'm putting out there, let me know in the comments. I appreciate every single person who tuned in. We're going up, Road to William. Follow me on Instagram, Road to William, TikTok, Road to William. That if you want to laugh, go to TikTok. If you want to, stay tuned in on what I'm about to post, great. I'm usually gonna let you know. Like, subscribe, tell your people about me. If they don't know, let them know. It's like it's a little bean head motherfucker on here. You should check out. Remember, like, all right,